Hey, it's Matt, your average gamer, and this is the ultimate fire build. This is the fire build I've been working on. We're going to have the stats at 125, 150, full build details, everything that you're going to need throughout this video, including taking down several of the main game bosses, absolutely obliterating them with fire. By the way, Malenia coming up here, this is the first half of it. The second half I'm going to leave at the end of the video with the sound on to kind of end this. The second half of this fight, the final second phase of Malenia, and I had to fight her a few times, it was probably one of the most exhilarating fights that I've been in. You have to see it. It's at the end of the video after the build details. It was unbelievably close. I mean, she's got half her HP. I've got around 50, roughly 50 health, literally, almost not even visible. It's an intense, unreal fight at the end of this video, and it's honestly incredible. It's one of the best Malenia fights I've been in. So first things first is, where do you get the Magma Blades? Well, the Magma Blades are really annoying to farm for. Actually, farming for them is not fun at all. It's got around a 1% drop rate, which is incredibly low. You can double that with the Silver Scarab, and this is the farm spot in Volcano Manor. I'll show you the map at the end, but overall, not really a fun item to farm for. Probably took me around 3 hours to get 2 of these. It's a difficult item to farm for. It has that low base drop rate of 1%. Very, very difficult. I actually ended up with 3 black dumplings, which are supposed to be technically less, from the almanac next to the elevator before I even had 1 of these things. I mean, it's that low. 3 hours to get 2. But in the end, it's worth it because they do fantastic damage. They're amazing, and they can be boosted by a lot of things, and the Ash of War scales purely with faith. First things first, I wanted to test these out. Now, this is on New Game. There's a whole bunch of video footage also of New Game Plus, as I was kind of making this build on a ground-up character. And I wanted to see how powerful it was with just a couple simple talismans and not really a ton of buffs, and it absolutely destroyed the tree avatar there. The damage already looks good. It was already impressing me. In an attempt to speed run and gain some more levels in the first New Game cycle, or as I was building my character up, I used summons. I normally solo stuff. I wanted to show this video though because this does poise damage. On top of all the fire damage and everything that it does, and leaving the lava pool there where they'll continuously take damage from it, it also does a good amount of posture damage as well. You can even break Malenia's posture with it by hitting her with successive attacks just by continually spamming the Art of War or Ash of War. As long as you have the stamina for it and you can keep spamming it, you can poise break them too. It does do posture damage, and it does a fair amount of it too. I was actually really impressed with the amount of posture damage and general damage these things do. These are S tier. They're fantastic, and they make for an excellent choice to dual wield for an awesome fire build. As we get rid of Gideon here, who is no threat to anybody with any build. I mean, honestly, he's got to be one of the easiest bosses in the game. You've probably heard me say that before. He's not really a threat to anyone. We move on to some more challenging things. But before we do that, I want to show where my stats were at and what they should look like at 125. These are my 125 stats, and we're mainly focusing on Faith here. Why Faith? Because the Ash of War, much like the Blasphemous Blade, scales purely with Faith. The Faith stat will boost that Ash of War and boost the damage, which is almost purely fire damage with some physical damage mixed in. And if you want to dual wield these and hard hit stuff, as in like you want to not use the Ash of War as much, it scales better with strength and dexterity. But the Ash of War is purely Faith based. And now that we're starting to get in some buffs, our build is at 125 now. We're starting to get to that point where we're really powerful, getting all the power we need, the buffs, the system, the talismans, everything to do a ton of damage to the enemies we're running into. Certain stuff, obviously, we're going to be a little over-leveled for, but the damage is fantastic. By the way, for the rest of this build video and in the title thumbnail, you'll notice I'm wearing the Fire Monk set. This is where you get the Fire Monk set. It's in the larger dungeon in Mountaintops of the Giants, but not too hard to farm for. In comparison to the Magma Blade, this is not bad to farm for at all. I think in about 20 to 30 minutes, I managed to get the whole set, and it looks really cool with this build. It's a cool looking set to go with the whole fire theme. And starting in New Game Plus, as you can tell, obviously we're going to hit everything like a ton of bricks. But one thing to note about this is that lava pool, especially for stationary bosses that really don't move a lot, it's going to continuously damage them, and the buffs and everything is just going to make it super powerful. And when you have stuff like Margit's Shackle that you can absolutely obliterate them, especially ones that are weak to fire or have 0 fire resistance. Before we go forward, by the way, I wanted to state, if you're not subbed, definitely sub to this channel. This community is growing. It's been fantastic. Definitely hit that subscribe button. Ton of overpowered PvE builds on my channel. You're definitely going to want to check those out. I'm constantly on here making as good quality videos as I can. So definitely hit that subscribe button. You'll be joining an awesome community. We just got a Discord too. Everything's been a ton of fun. What goes well with the Magma Blades? Well, since we're scaling so much off of faith, we can use a lot of faith-based stuff. And we have the Giant Seal, which is going to boost the fire incantations, the fire giant incantations rather, and this does a ton of damage. These are flame pillars from the fire giant, as you can tell there, with some simple buffs and whatnot. He went down so quickly. That was incredibly easy. Bigger bosses take a ton of damage from that, just like Ancient Dragon Lightning Strike, because it tends to hit them with all of it. Radon can normally be a pain. This is on New Game Plus, and he can hit really hard. He can also be difficult for a lot of builds. It's not the case with this. With the Magma Blades here and our Ash of War, which is doing a ton of damage, we're going to show the buffing at the end, along with the entire setup and the 150 stats. We're doing amazing damage. The Draconic Tree Sentinel is another one that falls in that same place because he has that long animation for when he starts or goes to attack you with the initial gallop or whatever it is, that he ends up standing in the majority of the fire, takes a ton of damage, and this build is fantastic for him. You can kill the harder one later in Farum Azula the same exact way. They tend to stand in it, and they take the full amount of damage. For Morgott, this is kind of the same deal. He has 0 fire resistance, much like his counterpart Margit, and he takes a ton of damage, obviously, because of that. He's taking the full amount of damage with our buffs, with our talismans. We absolutely obliterate Morgott. It's not even much of a fight, and he goes down with ease. There's not much to explain there. He takes the full amount of fire damage, and since we're doing a ton, it works fantastically. For our buffs, we are using the Fire Tear and the Consecutive Attack Tear because we do get a bonus from the Ash of War, does count for the consecutive attacks. Golden Vow, Blessings Boon, Flame Grant Me Strength. You can proc the Black Dumpling with Madness for an extra 10% for a minute if you so please. And then we're using the Ash of War for massive damage. We could have grabbed the Giant Fireball for this instance, but I really love the Flame Pillars. You can actually get dual Giant Seals and double your boost, which is 20% for each. If you go into a new game cycle or you have somebody drop one for you, the Flame Pillars do a ton of damage with the boost. They're absolutely awesome. I have a video on my channel of me obliterating Malenia with them. It knocks her down and does a ton of damage to her. So we're using the dual Magma Blades here that were very difficult to get. The Giant Seal, we have the Fire Monk set, the Fire Scorpion Charm, the Shard of Alexander, the Dragoncrest, because we're up in personal, I like that in that spot, Ritual Swords Talisman, and the Fire and Consecutive Attack or Defense Tear. That one's up to you. These are my 150 stats, and as you can tell, we went crazy with Faith here with 80 Faith, 45 Vigor, minimum stats for Dexterity and Strength, more or less, mainly because it does so much damage based off Faith, the Ash of War for these, and the Ash of War is fantastic, is highly buffable, and does a ton of damage. By the way, at the end here, I wanted to show you that final Malenia clip, probably the most intense Malenia fight I've ever been in. So here it is. Thanks for watching, and be sure to sub.